Sometimes, when problems come, too many at once, layered on one another, you can become exhausted by them, squashed and flattened, and it's really hard to know what to do. Possibility becomes impossibility. And the converse is true. Sometimes, when you have one brilliant thing overlaid with another really good thing, and you start putting really good things together, you create something extraordinarily powerful that opens up opportunities that just weren't there before. And tonight, I'm hoping to share with you an idea we are currently testing, designing new models of working which create better health and social care change in the world, develop young people into sustainable practitioners and social entrepreneurs, bring brands and businesses closer to the people that they're trying to reach, and develop good business, kind products, sustainable services. And this is an invitation to play. I genuinely want to play with people. I want to play with you because this is new, and I've only just come to realize what the power of this stuff is. So tonight I'm going to tell you how I got here. My name's Eloise Malone. I'm the Chief Executive of Effervescent, and we're a social design impact agency. So what we do as a small charity is we work to make the world better and kinder and happier. I'm also the Chief Curator of Radiant Gallery, which is based here in Plymouth, and which is the world's only contemporary art gallery which is curated by children and young people. And tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about the gallery first. So I've brought with me some shoes. These are some of a show. These are part of a show, an installation which was created by a bunch of young people who'd been sexually exploited. They'd been abused, they were very frightened, they'd had a horrible, horrible, disgusting, nasty time in their lives. And for the first time ever, they came and worked in the gallery and did some stuff with us, and they created a show. And if you can imagine it, as the audience walked into the gallery, they saw 50 grey plinths, about the size of a 7-year-old, that looked like war memorial plinths, with the names of young people that we knew of who had been sexually exploited. So 15 of these 50 plinths had glass shoes like this on top of them, standing for the children who'd been sexually exploited. We knew who they were, we knew they were getting help, but these children were desperately fragile. But the other 35 plinths, the 70% of plinths in the gallery, they had ice shoes on them, children's shoes cast in ice. And those shoes stood for the children that statistically we knew were out there and had been sexually exploited, but we hadn't found them and we hadn't given them any help yet. So this show, this kind of thing, is the kind of thing that we're programming in the gallery, and people love it. It's beautiful, it means something to people. We have an extraordinary amount of footfall comparative to our size. People really engage with it, and 70% of people who come to the gallery, curated by children and young people, these wise children and young people, they've never been to an art gallery before. Now, sometimes when I tell people that I work with children and young people, people imagine that they're making things out of sticky back plastic and bits of masking tape and straws and some poster paints. So I'm going to show you the promo that the young people made for their gallery exhibition so you can get a sense of the quality of work I'm talking about. That's a promo, created by some young people. We've done lots of these. We've made lots of work with lots of young people who've come from lots of different backgrounds and different situations. Children who are young carers, children who haven't got any friends and never have, children who are constantly bullied and don't know how to deal with it, people who feel terrible about things that they've done in the past and they can't let go of it. And what's consistent about all of the shows that we make with young people in the gallery is that they're really good. Like, even though we weren't sure if children could curate and nobody else is really doing this, actually children make shows and choose shows and select shows and commission shows which are really beautiful and resonant and extraordinary. And it's not just audiences who think so. Actually, one of the shows we did 2 years ago was listed by the magazines, the critical magazines, as between underneath Tate Britain, but better than Tate Liverpool. So 9-year-olds curated a show that was better than, or kind of sandwiched in between the two of the most funded, well-regarded galleries in the whole of the UK, and I thought that was pretty nice. So we do this consistently, and the way we do it is we work in a room with young people who choose to be there, and we have this studio which is about as big as this stage, and what we do is we run around and pretend to be unicorns and play with this and play with that, but it's a very measured and considered process. So actually it's based in play therapy, like all the principles which we use to make sure it's safe and meaningful and beautiful for those young people. It's based in play therapy. Now, children and young people, their natural language is play. So when we encourage young people to find a space in the gallery that they really like, that feels really magical to them, and make a show which, to make a piece of work, a little play piece of work for the next 3 hours, for the other group to experience that elicits an emotion, they go away and they do that, and they critically analyse it, and they understand how they did it. But because young people's natural language is play, they also start playing out the things that are really important to them as a group. And so over time, what we end up is with a studio covered in notes of all the things that are important to that group. And then just like an ink blot test, a psychological ink blot test, sometimes known as a Rorschach test, the young people diagnose what's going on. What is the pattern here? What is the thing that we need to say? And how are we going to say it? What are the metaphors? What are the images that are going to allow us to say this difficult stuff that we couldn't say any other way? And this is a teachable process. It works time after time after time. We've kind of invented it by fiddling about with it. And in fact, actually, I learned to do this by working in Nottingham. And when I saw a class of kids and said, what do you want to make a show about? They go, football. And I was like, I can't make any more shows about football. So I found this way to distract them from telling me to make a show about football and find different ways to find out what was interesting in the group. So that's how we're doing it. It's a teachable, replicable technology. And we do good gallery. That's nice. But I wanted to push this a little bit further. I was interested to see where our footprint could go. So it's nice to do something in Plymouth. I love Plymouth. This is my home, and it's where I always want to be based. But actually, I also wanted to see how far we could spread. So we started working with young people on campaigns. We would work with health services, social services, charities, not-for-profit organisations, for good organisations, to help them say things and to reach into their audience more effectively to do difficult things. And this is a still from a piece of work we did with the Early Intervention Psychosis Service in Cornwall a few years back. When we went to them, when they asked us to help them, their branding, their literature, their comms was Comic Sans Serif font, a little bit of word art, and some people stock footage kind of jumping in the air, looking really happy to have psychosis. And so what we did is we worked with their client group who lived through this very frightening disorder to find a different way to reach out to people who needed help and to find new ways to draw them to the service faster. And I'm going to show you what they made. No, I'm not. young people are amazing. They think originally, they create pieces of work which adults would never consider making because they have lived with things and they understand what most needs to be said because they've been there. They know how people need to hear about things to make things change. This film uplifted referrals by 80% nearly in the first 10 weeks that it went live. And that was an extraordinary achievement because the thing about psychosis is lots of people become very, very ill and their life gets very, very horrible for them. And it takes ages to get a diagnosis, sometimes 2 years. So to get in early, to get help earlier, saves time on therapy. It saves those people going through that horror, and it is really horrible. It stops people being homeless. It stops people falling out with their families. It stops people getting a criminal record. So this way of working has a profound social impact. It's really exciting. It can change hundreds of people's lives. And I'm going to show you another one. I'm not a robot. This is a piece of work that I've just finished doing with young people last autumn, and this, again, had an extraordinary human value. So I worked with a bunch of young people who are children who were in foster care in the city of Plymouth, and they designed a campaign that was to engage and bring in more people in the city who would like to be foster carers, and they didn't yet know it. What this looked like, I want to tell you because it's gorgeous, is you came into the gallery, so it was a gallery-based campaign, but also had outreach. And as you came in, there were all these tiny robots in cages, and you could hug them by touching sensors, and they would get kind of happiness points, and you could sit on a sofa, which was an intelligent sofa, and read them a book, and they'd get happiness points. And gradually, more and more robots would start growing their fluff back and engaging, and they would sing to the audience about how much they were ready to go home with them. It was a beautiful, beautiful show. It was very silly, it was very gorgeous, it was very funny. The council had never done anything like this before, and it uplifted foster care referrals by 130% in those 10 weeks. Loads and loads and loads of extra people went forward and went, oh yeah, actually, I would quite like to be a foster carer. What a great idea. And this is because young people found a different way to talk to people about what they needed. Now, that has a profound social value because all those young people, those 30, 40, 50 young people in Plymouth now have a foster carer that wasn't there for them before. And that means that they can be suited to a family that are ready for them and that are right for them, rather than placed into care with someone who's got a bed for the night. And that has an additional benefit beyond that happiness benefit and that safety benefit. Actually, by working in this way, the council has saved somewhere in the region, we estimate, of £800,000 this year, because what they're not doing is putting children into emergency placements out of county or with independent foster care. So this is, you've got nice stuff happening for people. You've got money being saved for the civic purse. Now, in this country, 1.7 million children live in poverty, and government figures show that that is rising by 3.5% each year. Children are in need. They are at risk. They are facing trauma. But children who've lived through that stuff, they're also wise, they're also kind, and they're also really passionate about social justice because they know what it's like to face injustice and to not be responsible for the horrible stuff that's happening to you. Public spend in this country on social care for children and young people is about £9 billion a year. Now let's hold that there for a minute because I want to tell you what we spend on marketing in this country. At the moment, our creative industries are worth about £89–90 billion a year, and also we spend £22 billion a year on marketing. Now, my question to you tonight is, if we know that when you layer good stuff upon good stuff, you get amazing new stuff, what would happen if we started combining those budgets? What would happen if some of that £22 billion a year on marketing to marketing to people. And we know that companies are really interested in good quality, sustainable marketing. You see the Dove campaign, where they're trying to get people to understand that being beautiful comes from within. It doesn't come from products and makeup. So we know that that's already an aspiration and this is emerging. But what if you took that technology further and collaborated with wise children? So we know that wise children create better campaigns than the adults can. They can be twice as effective. We know that they can reach more people and do social good that we haven't managed to do before. We know that we can create kind of good impact. We know it can save money. And we know that in doing this, we're developing children and young people as the next wave of social entrepreneurs and marketers and all the stuff that's really important and they can't always get in a mainstream education. But there's something else that I want to tell you. The children and young people we work with who have quite often undergone terrible trauma and have very, very, very difficult lives, they turn up on average to maybe 10 to 20% of school, of social care stuff for them, of health provision. They maybe go to school one day in 10 because their lives are so complicated and school is so difficult and so challenging for them and everything is too difficult that it's just too hard for them to go. Sometimes they can't leave because their parents are ill and they need to be home with their parents. The World Health Organization says the average population, everyone in this room, the average population only use 50% of their medicine or their medical intervention. So if the young people we're working with turn up to 10 to 20% of it, even your average person only uses about 50% of stuff that they're supposed to be doing to make themselves feel better. On average, the turn-up rate to the work we do, young people voluntarily getting themselves to it, is 97%. Over 4 or 5 years we've been logging this. 97%. And the effect on young people is extraordinary. 50% go into work or college or training in about 12 to 18 months after they've worked with us. And 100% of them say that they feel happier, they feel better in themselves, they feel more connected to the people around them, and they know how to ask for help. And they have the critical thinking skills, thanks to this training, to work out what they need to do about their problems, or at least know that there is a problem, and they can go and ask for it. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to meet Sonny, who is one of the young people that I worked with a couple of years ago, and he will tell you what it did for him and the people on his program.
F has basically just opened up a lot of doors for me, gave me a wide thing of opportunities. Like in school, I was just kind of sat there behind a desk, bored out of my mind. I had never had anything to do. But then I came here and it was always something, new, like I've never done before. Just kind of opened up my eyes to everything. I'm now in college, which I didn't think I'd be able to do. I have a chance to go to university if I want to, which I am considering. But I've never got that if I was in school. So this just kind of opened up my future. This stuff that F does is important to other people because it just makes a difference in everyone. It changes things for people, changes the way they look at things. It gives them a voice. The people I work with on the Call of Truth, when they told their stories to people, they weren't believed. They were seen as liars just because of their age. But here they were given a voice and they felt like they mattered and like they were a person. And F just kind of made them feel like people, not just some little thug kid that nobody's going to listen to.
Thank you.